at my age, and as they say, I breathed new life into me, and yeah. So what we did like normal things that we do in Cleave House, where we did sports and we did the games. I had a lot of fun, and we had a few lectures. Well, not a few, but quite a lot. And then we talked about the purpose of life and Adam and Eve's the fall of man, and well, yeah, and I had a lot of fun. I met a lot of new people, and I breathed new life into myself. Thank you.
How many days?
Oh, it was 6 days.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well done, Adam.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So Adam wasn't the only one who went to that workshop. Also, David went. And if you want to say anything, you can do. Yeah.
Okay. So the idea behind this workshop came from the song of the Spring Breeze, with this idea that the dark night has long been in our lives, and now is finally the time to feel this comfort from the spring that is now coming. And I really enjoy singing the song of the Spring Breeze at the workshop. We sang it at the graduation, and it was really meaningful to me, because I could really feel that there is some new hope, that is not just the bleak, this very kind of what seems like a bleak present, where you don't see very far ahead of you, and you're not sure if the ground under you is even stable. So that's some reasons why I really enjoyed this workshop. Thanks.
David, was it the same for you and for Adam, or was it different categories? I'm just interested. Depending on the age.
Like the purity, the activities were separated by age.
So you were in different activities than Adam.
Most of the activities were done together, but there was a day when we talked about purity and lifestyle. So this was separated.
And the rest was together.
Yeah.
Yes.
Good morning, everybody. I just want very quickly to share, it is the holy month of Ramadan, right? It will be finished next week, because we have a lot of Muslim friends, really. So it's always very, very special for us to go to visit, to bring a card for Eid, and also to really give a little something to break up their fast, their iftar. And it's just so touching to feel the devotion of these people. It's unbelievable what they're doing, like for 40 days not to eat, during the day, for 30 days. And then also to give a lot for charity, also to look in themselves, to soul searching, and to change their life. It's very, very humbling. So I would really, encourage everybody, if you have a Muslim friend, to just bring a card and just say thank you for all your efforts. It really moved their heart, I think. So we had some really lovely experience. We visited many families. I think I don't know, almost 100 families could be, and during this month. But what was really nice, you meet the families, so you meet the young people, you meet the children. So it's just really an extension. It's a family thing. So I wanted to share that. Yeah. The other thing is, Viola was asking to announce. Yeah, for the we have our 1 day peace seminar on the 20th of May. And David Hanna will come from London, and it will be about teaching universal principle of peace. It's really for UPM. It's very gentle way to really introduce the three blessings. It's very very nice. So if you want to come, you're welcome. And on the 26th of April, we have also a family evening that we try to revive a little bit. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, now it's time to sing. So the first song we have is 10,000 Reasons, and the lyrics will be
Have we got this right?
on the
If technology is being cooperative this morning.
I just actually want to say a big thank you to Amir, because Uncle Tom's not here because he's in Switzerland. And last minute, Amir was what? You volunteered?
Yeah.
Was volunteered.
Volunteered? Yeah, but thank you very much. Bless the Lord, oh my soul, oh my soul. Worship His holy name. Sing like never before, oh my soul. I worship Your holy name. The sun comes up, new day dawning. It's time to sing Your song again. Whatever may pass and whatever lies before me, this is the evening comes. Bless the Lord, my soul, oh my soul. Worship His holy name. Sing like never before, oh my soul. I worship Your holy name. Wishing nothing so to end. Life is great and the heart is kind. All Your goodness I will keep on singing. 10,000 reasons for my heart to find. Bless the Lord, oh my soul, oh my soul. Worship His holy name. Sing like never before, oh my soul. I worship Your holy name. When my strength is failing, the end was near and my time is gone. Still my soul sings a praise Your name. 10,000 reasons forevermore. Bless the Lord, oh my soul, oh my soul. Worship His holy name. Sing like never before, oh my soul. I worship Your holy name. Bless the Lord, oh my soul, oh next song is Hosanna. No, it's this one.
King of glory, coming down the clouds with fire, all earth shakes, all earth shakes. I see His love and mercy, washing over all our sin. People sing, the people sing. I see a generation rising up to take the place. Selfless faith, selfless faith. I see a new revival, stirring as we pray and sing. On our knees, on our knees.
So there's a reason we chose Christian songs today, but you'll find that out later. So Uncle Steve has given me 2 extra readings. I have no idea about, but does anyone want to read a reading? We have quite a lot.
I'll do one.
We'll do one. Which one's
What? I want one of the sisters to do
was this
the
the
one for True Mother.
brothers one?
Brothers can do the
Brothers?
ones from True
We
Father.
need
I've
a-
got one.
I want one of the sisters to do.
Where is Adam? Who did this?
And you still want the Bible reading as
I
well?
want the Bible reading as well.
Okay, I'll start with the Bible reading then. Okay. So this is from the Bible, and it is from Matthew chapter 16, verses 13 to 20. This is where Peter declares that Jesus is the Messiah.
Mm-hmm.
When Jesus came to the region of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, "Who do people say the Son of Man is?" They replied, "Some say John the Baptist, others say Elijah, and still others, Jeremiah, or one of the prophets. But what about you? He asked. What do you say I am? Simon Peter answered, You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God. Jesus replied, Blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah, for this was not revealed to you by flesh and blood, but by my Father in heaven. And I tell that you are Peter. And on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not overcome it. I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven. Whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven. Then he ordered his disciples not to tell anyone that he was the Messiah. Next reading.
True Father's words. When I was in Tokyo, I worked pulling carts as a delivery man, making deliveries in 27 districts. I decided to do the job not because I needed the money, but because I wanted the training. If you find yourself working in a transportation company, you should become more knowledgeable about the work than the company veterans. If not, how can you persuade them to take you seriously? During the summer, I transported telephone poles on a cart. Once there was an accident. As I came to an intersection, a pole shifted to one side, causing my cart to spin around. Sensing danger, all the passers-by, men and women, scattered. I can still picture it in my mind. I have another unforgettable memory about when I was living in a slum. I covered myself with a ragged blanket. My clothes became infested with lice. I am God's son, but I volunteered to become a frontline soldier, a guerrilla of sorts, in order to conquer Satan's world. My hope is greater than yours. It is as high as a great mountain. However, because I knew that the time was coming when I would have to push many people to travel the road of a servant, I first pushed myself to take the position of a servant. Had I not lived the life of a servant myself, I would not be qualified to call others to do it. If I wanted others to live the life of a servant, I needed to live the life of a servant first. I had to become a servant for the sake of my country of Korea. This is why I once became a servant of three-year-old children and served them faithfully morning and evening. I attended those children as if each were God. Also, when I was studying in Japan, I lived in a slum swarming with lice. I carried loads of coal and loads of salt. I welcomed all kinds of experiences that others would shrink from. This is my personal story, and some bitter sorrow still remains. You should alleviate my bitter sorrow. What then would be your starting point? What is it that you need to grab onto as the basis of your own emotional resolve? It should be to represent me. When you go to those places, you should go on my behalf. Although you may receive persecution, you should shed tears for the people there. You will feel my blood throbbing in your veins.
Hello, everyone. These are true mother's words. Jesus should form a family. Jesus had formed a family and been protected by Joseph's family and Zechariah's family. He would not have died on the cross. You are able to realize and fathom even a little the heart of God as he looks upon human history, as it has been created by ignorant human beings. It will be a source of comfort to him. In this regard, you need to know that human responsibility is important. God had a dream of living together with the first ancestors. Instead of living alone, he wished to live with his family, his object partners as the father and mother. However, in order for Adam and Eve, who were still in the process of growing, to exercise the same authority and power as God, they needed to fulfill their 5% portion of responsibility. If Adam and Eve had fulfilled their portion of responsibility and had passed the heavenly bloodline down through history, today's difficulties, such as religious conflicts and racial problems, would not exist. The omniscient and omnipotent God can know no failure. He has waited for human beings to fulfill their responsibility and rise to the same position as his. Today, there are 4 great religions that have expanded and developed worldwide. Even the people who believed in those four religions did not know about God's true will. Though those religions have worshipped the one God and pursued peace and happiness of humanity, they are unable to unite because they have each continued to grow separately, centering on themselves. If Jesus had lived to achieve God's will, the Catholic and Protestant histories would not be divided and complicated like they are today, for the kingdom of heaven on earth and in heaven would have been realized in Jesus' day. As you can see, humankind's portion of responsibility is really crucial. As people who have received the blessing, you too have a responsibility.
Thank you. Okay, so now it's time for the sermon. But before that, can the little ones go with Radek for Sunday school? Thank you. So the sermon is entitled, "Who do I say I am? Who do I say I am?" So people like Uncle Steve.
So, who do you say I am? They're taking the same. Good morning, brothers and sisters.
Good morning.
This is quite an old photograph. And some of the people in this photograph are sitting here today. People who have people who have faithfully attended God and true parents for a long period of time. Actually, somewhere here, I think we've got Auntie Ruthlin. Eunice is over here. Uncle Tom is up here somewhere. And actually, many of these brothers and sisters still form the backbone of our church in this country. People who have faithfully attended God and true parents. So, but it brings a question. Why are we here? How do we know that this Korean guy that we're following isn't a madman? How do we, even if he's an honest broker of God's truth, how do we know that he's not deluded? It's a very important question for our faith. And for myself, I came to meet the principal in the winter of 1976. And it was a very similar time to today because unions were on strike. And I was actually I worked at Birmingham University, and I was actually on strike and standing on the picket lines of the university staff. But my background and my family, my grandmother's family were members of the Salvation Army. Deeply, deeply Christian people. We went to church 4 or 5 times on a Sunday. We would start with the Sunday service, and then you would go to Sunday school. And sometimes in the summer you would go to the park and with the rest of the congregation, and then you would go out with the Salvation Army band in the afternoon, who would go witnessing for the 6 o'clock service that would go on at the Citadel. What is also interesting and people don't understand is that after the death of General Booth, the movement was led by his 3 daughters as female commanders of the Salvation Army. So they're well known for their charitable work, but their philosophy, their theology was deeply Calvinistic, deeply Protestant. And for instance, a Salvation Army officer, and I think this is probably still true, Salvation Army officer is not allowed to marry. If you want to stay in a frontline mission, you're not allowed to marry somebody who is not a Salvation Army officer. And this came from a Methodist background, a Methodist tradition, that in order to be focused on the kingdom of God, both partners had to support your pastorship. This was a tradition that ran through many Methodist missionaries. It was a tradition that ran through the Salvation Army. And the centre of our family was my grandmother. And my father was killed in a coal mining accident when I was 12 months old. And so I grew up in my grandmother's house. And we would gather Sunday lunch, and she literally was the glue that held our family together. At the age of 10, she was diagnosed with bowel cancer. And I spent 3 years watching her die in pain. Now, we are not defined by suffering. We are defined by how we respond to it. So I was absolutely heartbroken when my grandmother died, and it had a profound effect on my mother. She'd already been very deeply affected, having lost her husband at the age of 19. And when my grandmother died, it brought something to the surface, repressed grief that had not left her. And so at 13, I walked around the house like a cat on hot bricks. You never knew what you were going to do to trigger an argument between my mother and my stepfather. And one day I'd done something, it was really trivial, but it triggered an argument between them, and I left the house in tears. I remember where we lived on the outskirts of Birmingham, there's a really dirty little stream, a tributary of the River Rye that flows out of Dunlop. And it's filthy and it's polluted. And this day it had been raining, so this culvert was fairly full of floodwater. And I was walking alongside this stream, and I was praying and talking to God. What kind of God are you? Why is it that the people who love you the most suffer the most? Why is there so much misery and suffering in the world? And suddenly it was as though this stream started sobbing. The stream itself was crying. And I could hear this I could feel this incredible deep sadness. And suddenly it was as though the whole creation around me was sobbing with this incredible deep grief. And God spoke to me, he said, look at the things that I've made. Is there anything in the universe that is not in balance, in harmony? Is there anything in nature that is not in balance? Even the animals that kill only for food. Man is the only thing on this planet that would kill his own children for sport. And you cannot believe how much it grieves me to see what you have done to the world that I've created. I said, but you're God. You know, you're supposed to be almighty. You're supposed to be omnipotent. You're supposed to be able to do something about this. But God said to me, I gave you 2 hands. I gave you 2 arms. I gave you the ability to comfort the sick, to raise the poor. And I can only do as much in the world as you allow me to do through you. You have taken a hand that should have been used in friendship and turned it into a fist against your brother. And that fist has become weapons of war that will destroy the whole earth. I can do nothing unless you do something, allow me to work through you. So I returned home, and on one level I was deeply shocked by this incident because it fitted no known theology. It fitted no known understanding. It was so far beyond my religious understanding at the time that it's, what the heck? How do I make this a frame of reference in my life? How do I possibly cope with this experience? It is so far outside of what I understand God to be. So I went home, and as I dropped off to sleep, I suddenly found myself floating up near the ceiling. Okay, 2 hands. I'm a fairly rational person normally. 2 hands, 2 feet, 2 arms, 2 legs. Why am I still wearing the clothes that I had on while I was out walking outside? And why and I see my body in the bed. Suddenly there was a noise outside. We used to live by a pub, and so as somebody's walked past, I've directed my attention to the noise outside, and suddenly I'm back in my body on the bed. So this out of the body experience, God was showing me, look, the spirit exists. We exist after death. It is not the end. So then, about 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, I woke up and there was somebody stood at the end of my bed. And at first I'm worried. I'm thinking, somebody's broken into the house. And then I realised I can actually see the bedroom door handle through this person's middle. Okay, now I'm curious. Who are you? What do you want? And suddenly I just feel this absolutely overwhelming feeling of parental love, of masculine parental love. But at the time, I thought it was my father had come back from the spirit world, because this person was covered in a sort of travelling cloak, and all I could see was this very faint outline of this figure. And so for the next 4 or 5 years, I studied every area of parapsychology, of religion, of theology, to try and understand these experiences. At the same time, I was studying physics, chemistry, biology. I wanted to go to medical school, and I ended up working at the Queen Elizabeth, the Birmingham Medical School, as a research technician in the physiology department. So I had these two aspects of my life: this deeply rational, scientific knowledge, and these deeply spiritual experiences. And so I'm at church. Somebody was witnessing in the middle of Birmingham, a sister called Karen Say, and it was freezing cold. It had to have been one of the coldest Decembers we've had for a long, long time. And this poor girl looked absolutely perished. And, we got talking. We were talking about God, and she said, "Oh, we have a new philosophy. Would you like to come in here?" And I thought, "Oh, no, not really. But does that mean you get off the street and get a cup of coffee?" Yes. Right. Okay. So my original motivation was compassion for the poor sister who looks so cold. So then John Hayden started talking about the principle of creation. And yeah, okay, no, most of that. Oh, I didn't quite see that relationship there. I put that and that together, but not that one. And John said, "Shall I stop?" I said, No, carry on. I didn't really want to go and stand on the picket line. So then he moved on to the fall. And at one point he said, and this was the crime of Satan, and it was like a bomb went off in my head. The crime of Satan. There's only one person can know the crime of Satan. He's telling me the Messiah is on the earth. He's crazy. Has to be. Cannot possibly be. But I know what he's telling me. So I heard the rest of the principle, and then up to sort of chapter 3, and then a few nights later I went over to Centre in Moseley, and I heard the rest of the principle up to conclusion. And as we were talking about who the Messiah was, there was a picture of Father from Washington Monument on the wall, and Father's face was standing out of this poster by about 3 feet, and it was like the Hallelujah chorus had gone off in my head. And so I got invited to go down to London to go to a carol service, and I thought, no, I don't want to do that. I've got Christmas all planned out. I've got to go out with my friends, and so over Christmas, the spirit world wouldn't leave me alone. At the time, there was a song by Johnny Mathis. I don't know, some of you will know it. It's called "When a Child is Born," and it talks about Jesus being born as a child on the earth. And somebody in the pub thought it was really funny to put this on every 3 minutes, because it was literally every second record in the pub over Christmas. So as soon as I came back from London, I sort of turned up the centre with my hands in the air and said, "Okay, I surrender. Let's find out a bit more about what's going on." So I went to the 2-day workshop. I went to the 21-day workshop. And at the end of the 21-day workshop, I determined that I was going to dedicate my life to God. And so I went to the Holy Ground, and I remember coming back across the fields with this incredible feeling of joy. But then reality sets in. And then it's very easy to sacrifice your life and give your life in an instant. But to live your life, as many of our brothers and sisters have done, day by day, step by step, inch by inch, in the sort of determination that we see from so many of our blessed couples, is something else. And it comes down to character. And one of the problems, I had two problems. One, a very fundamentalist spirit world in my ancestry, who would often say things that, this man's an antichrist. He can't possibly be the Messiah. It's all rubbish. And another was, in order for us to stand in front of true parents, in order for us to attend true parents, actually what we're given as children in our lives matters. Because when you are an orphan, and actually every human being who is not born of God, who's not born, is an orphan. This is the truth. This is the reality of the fall. We've never experienced true parents in our lives. We can't live with true parents on a day-to-day basis. And so we truly don't understand who true parents are. We don't. That is the reality. Our parents do the best, whether they come from the first generation, second generation, whatever. Our parents do the best they can to transmit the love of God to us, because parental heart is the only thing that has not been distorted by the fall. And so I really struggled on a personal level to attend God to the depth that I should have done. And one day we were working up in Scotland, and there were many incidents where God protected us and saved our lives. One day I was in a van with Andrew Johnson, and a crow, we were driving along Scottish roads, and he's going hell for leather along this country road in a van at 60 miles an hour. And suddenly a crow flies into the radiator. And Andy's like, oh man, that's really Satan. Andy, slow down. Now, as we came around this bend, there was a horse in the middle of the road that was running past a car that was moving. Had we continued into that bend at that speed, every single person in that van would have been dead. This is the sort of thing that happened. Fundraising teams died in America, but God protected us as we worked around Scotland and the Highlands and the Islands. We visited Skye. We visited during the summer of '77. We visited the whole of Scotland. And Wampel Kim was coming up to. We were living and working in the bar, and our lives were. Sometimes we get back at 2 o'clock in the morning, and I was the team accountant. So we got accounts. I got the week's accounts to do. So we'd get up for pledge at 4:30, and okay, we might have got in at 2, but I wouldn't go back to bed because I need to do the accounts. If I went back to bed and didn't do the accounts after pledge, then I would miss out on the whole day's activities. So why should I miss out with my brothers and sisters? So it's only a bit of sleep. So Wampel Kim came up to Dunbar, and I was still struggling with a lot of doubt at that point in my life of faith. What am I following a false Messiah? Is this man truly who he says he is? And so one Monday we were due to go into Edinburgh, and I woke up feeling absolutely crap. I'm very lucky. I've been blessed with very good health throughout most of my life up until the last couple of years. But I had a fever. I really didn't want to go out. And Tony Adamson, the team leader, said, "Oh, come on, we're going to go down to Edinburgh. You can manage it for one day." So I went out, and we're fundraising on the street, selling One Worlds, and I suddenly became spiritually open on the street. And I can honestly say that this was one of the most unpleasant spiritual experiences I've ever had in my life, because I could see what some people's spirit men look like. That people who are not living a principled life, the distortion that happens within their spirit man. Some people actually almost look like animals. I asked one guy if he wanted to give money for missionary work. He went, no! And his face changed. It literally became the face of a snarling wolf. And then every negative Christian minister seemed to make an absolute beeline for me on that particular day. And if you've ever met a Church of Scotland fundamentalist Kirk of Scotland minister, you know what I'm talking about. Are you saved by the blood of Jesus Christ? If you don't believe in Jesus Christ as your personal saviour, you're damned and you're going to hell. And by the time Tony came to collect me at about 4 o'clock, I was literally just hanging on to this lamppost. I could barely stand up. So we got back to Dunbar, and I'd bought all this crap from the street in with me. It's the only way I can describe it. I totally salted myself, and I still felt from the street. So I started praying. I couldn't be bothered to eat. I just didn't have any appetite. So I started praying. I just wanted to get a sense of peace, a sense of inner calm, and actually go off to sleep. And so eventually, after about 2, maybe 3 hours of prayer, I actually got quiet enough in myself to actually go to sleep. And part of my prayer had been, God, what am I doing here? What am I doing here? Is this the truth? Is this man a false Messiah? Father, I need to know. And so suddenly I had an experience where God took me back in this dream. I dropped off to sleep, and God took me back in this dream to my bedroom at 13 years of age. And this figure standing at the end of my bed, as I said, it was like a person in a travelling cloak. And this person put his hands up to the hood and pushed it back. And it was Father. And Father said to me, look, 6.5 years before you joined this movement, I was already watching over you. Why do you doubt that you've been called? Why do you doubt that you've been called? And then I had a second dream. And in this dream, I saw Father and Jesus standing together. And Jesus said, this is my beloved brother, in whom I am well pleased. And then Jesus' Spirit merged into true Father. So you have it on good authority that actually Jesus himself personally testified to me that Father is the Lord of the second advent. But then it went further than that. About 4 o'clock in the morning, I woke up and there was this incredible, I can't even begin to describe what it was, this incredible spiritual power, spiritual energy in the room. As it almost sounded like sometimes you get a big transformer and you're stood next to it. It's incredible spiritual energy. And suddenly this vision began to form on the wall in front of me. And I saw true parents. And they were in a huge stadium. And this stadium that was full of people. And Father and the true family ran into the middle of this stadium. And there was a huge podium in the middle of the stadium with the Olympic symbol behind it. And a bowl for the Olympic flame. So Father and Mother ran into the middle of the stadium, and there were 2 guards, armed guards, either side of the entrance. One of them put his weapon down, the other one picked his rifle up and fired a bullet at True Father, fired a gun at True Father. The Father put out his hand, stopped the bullet with his hand, turned his hand over, opened his hand, and this bullet turned into a dove. And this dove flew 3 times round True Parent's head and then merged into this Olympic bowl behind True Parents till it became this absolutely huge, fiery dove. And then there's this incredible voice. Behold, the dwelling of God is now with men. And suddenly, many things happened at the same time. I could see Jesus and the heavenly hosts coming down to the earth. And even some people were lying dead on the ground. The shock of, communist leaders. And there's like these huge hands seem to come out and crush these communist leaders, these atheists. And Father and Mother had this incredibly brilliant golden aura. And suddenly, as a little bit like rays of light went from True Parents to this couple in the audience, and this couple in the audience, and this couple in the audience. And sometimes now you get people with their mobile phones and they turn their mobile phones on in the audience. The whole interior of the stadium looked like this until suddenly I was flying backwards. And hovered and overflowing with this golden light. And I was pulled back from the earth. And True Parents were standing over the earth, placing the stars up into the heavens. Now, the interesting thing was, I left the church at one point because of my lack of character. And I can't even begin to describe the process of walking back. But the interesting thing is that stadium, from that vision in 1977, was the Seoul Olympic Stadium and the blessing of 36,000 couples. Because that stadium has a very, very distinctive shape to its roof. So how can I see, before the stadium was even built, how can I possibly have seen that stadium and known that stadium when they hadn't even drawn up the designs? So know of a surety that Chononguk, the kingdom of heaven, will get here when we fulfill our portion of responsibility, when we pick up our portion of responsibility and serve and attend our True Parents. True Mother is offering us this grace, this blessing of holy wine, and I'm not sure I understand the full significance of how Mother is trying to connect us to the providence through this holy wine ceremony. Maybe nowadays that's above my pay grade, but we can be sure and certain that Father is who he says he is, and that True Parents are leading the providence on our behalf. So thank you very much for your kind attention, brothers and sisters. I'd like to leave it there. I'm sorry I've run over a little bit.
Thank you very much, Uncle Steve. I heard before, I heard a few times before your stories, but I always forget how, I don't know, had so many different experiences, and I just wish I had a portion of those experiences in my life. But we just, I think we're very lucky, and we need to remember that first gen have had all these experiences throughout their life for a reason. And I think it's because the foundation they needed to give us. Anyway, thank you very much. So if you take this time maybe to do some just reflection, listen and think about what we've heard. Yeah.
we didn't get. Because we were running short time, so we should get to the last do that bit.
Should we just go to the last one? That's it.
We'll save that one for another time.
Okay, so the last, not the last song, offering song is Sailing with Our Fathers, and that's in your books that you have 121, song 121. Yeah, come on, let's stand up for a change.
We chose this one because this was an anthem for many of our fundraising teams as we travelled around Scotland.
Okay, so
Just one of David Fraser Harris's and Peter Graham.
okay, so this is a favourite song for many of us.
Do a little intro.
If we could stay standing and if you can just join Uncle Martin in a closing prayer just to finish.
Please join me in prayer. Our beloved Heavenly Parent, we have gathered together today to listen to your word and seek your guidance. You know that you built this beautiful universe and planet with so much love and care, and as Steve so rightly said, we've made a real mess of it. But we're determined to turn things around. We're determined to try and bring your love and truth into this world. It may take a while. It's not simple to do, but we're trying. And these beautiful people here are part of that process. Please bless and guide them all. I offer this prayer in my name, Martin Field, of the Central Press family. Amen.
Okay, thank you very much, everybody. So next is just basically time for snacks, and we do have a Easter egg hunt for younger people. So